If you're over the age of 60 and you want to maintain or improve your strength, your muscle mass, get more toned, improve your posture so that you can stay more independent, you can travel, you can volunteer, you can play with your grandkids, you've come to the right place. Because here's what you can expect to learn. First, we'll discuss some fitness myths that people over the age of 60 often believe and are often perpetuated by fitness professionals even. Then, we'll talk about the most important factor for quality of life and longevity. Then we'll talk about how to adjust exercise as you age, as well as the 8 or 9 different factors that you need to consider when thinking about strength training over 60. And finally, we'll talk about weight loss over 60. If you want to see more videos like this, just click like and subscribe, and you'll be able to get notifications when I publish more videos on similar topics. Now, before we get to it, who am I? My name is Igor Klibanov, that's me. I'm the author of, so far, 8 different books on exercise and nutrition, including Stop Exercising the Way You're Doing It Now, The Mental Health Prescription, High Blood Pressure Reversal Secrets, Type 2 Diabetes Reversal Secrets, Osteoporosis Reversal Secrets, and others. I'm also a personal trainer who specializes in helping people over 60 get stronger, get more toned, maintain independence, improve mobility, and more. Here are a few of my clients. Here is Carol, and I'll give you her case study in more detail later on. She's 72. Here is Gordon. He is 75 in this picture. Here is Anne. She is 62 in this picture, and many, many, many others. That's who my team and I specialize in. Additionally, I was selected as one of the top 5 personal trainers in Toronto by the Metro News newspaper, and a number of my books have been getting some publicity, including Globe and Mail for Stop Exercising, Health Executive Today, Toronto Star in the retirement section, and others. And if you want a free PDF version of my book, Stop Exercising the Way You Are Doing It Now, just visit this link, www.fitnesssolutionsplus.ca/YouTube, or check it out in the description below. I've also been a guest expert on different TV programs like this show, which is called I'm Every Woman. And this specific episode was about the hormone body fat connection during menopause, as well as CHCH, that's the morning live show, when I was doing my book tour for the mental health book. Additionally, I am a mentor to a number of other personal trainers, teaching them how to work with people over 60. So let's get to it. What are some of the biggest myths about exercise for people over 60? One of the most common ones out there is that if I have bone-on-bone arthritis, I shouldn't do strength training. Nothing could be further from the truth. I understand that your joints hurt. However, strengthening your muscles can improve your joints. But how do you get the benefits of strength training without the pains of strength training? Well, sometimes a complicated problem has a simple solution. One simple solution to joint pain during exercise is, if it's in the lower body, simply change your foot position. In other words, your knees or your hips or your ankles might hurt you in a certain foot position, but just try changing where your toes are pointing, or try changing the width of your stance. Furthermore, nobody ever said that your stance has to be symmetrical. If you want to have one foot in front of the other, that is also an option. Sometimes it's only one very specific position that hurts, and close positions that are not exactly identical don't hurt at all. So you can decrease the stress on the joint and still adequately and perfectly well work the muscle. Now that's in the lower body. If it's in the upper body, you can do something similar. Maybe one type of grip hurts, but a different grip doesn't hurt. Maybe an underhand grip hurts, but a neutral or an overhand grip doesn't hurt. So you can try that if your issue is in the wrist, elbow, or shoulder. These are ways you can adequately work the muscles without sacrificing your joints. After all, we don't want strong muscles and sore joints. We want strong muscles and pain-free joints. And this is how you can do that. And another way to avoid painful joints while strengthening the muscles is, very often, if you have arthritis, not the entire range of motion hurts. Sometimes it's just small parts of the range of motion. So what you can do is you work less than that range or more than that range. For instance, When you raise your arm out to the side, that is called abduction, abduction. And you might only hurt from about 120 to 135 degrees. So if you do exercises below 120 degrees, and then you do exercises above 135 degrees, you're in the pain-free. So you're still getting benefit for 165 degrees of the range of motion. And as a side benefit, possibly a few weeks or months down the line, the range that used to hurt may no longer hurt. So again, this is a very effective way to keep the muscles strong without beating up the joints. So here's a case study, and I talked about her earlier. This is Carol. She's one of our clients. In this picture, she's 72 years old. And before she started working with us, she was a tour guide. Now, tour guides walk a lot, and her issue was hip arthritis. Because of the hip arthritis, she was walking with a cane everywhere, and she was popping 2 pain pills per day. That was no way to live. Using the principles you've just learned about right now, in addition to a few other strategies that we've implemented with her, she was able to completely stop using her painkillers and decrease her use of the cane by about 90%. She only started to use it going down the stairs and going down an incline, going up the stairs, going on neutral ground, and even going at a fast pace. She didn't need the cane anymore. So she was quite happy that in just a matter of a few weeks to a couple months, she was basically pain-free 90+% of the time. Whereas before, she was in pain close to 100% of the time, despite the painkillers. That's myth number 1, that if I have bone-on-bone arthritis, I shouldn't do strength training. Myth number 2 is that I've had the exact same exercise routine for years, and I don't need to change it. Well, here's the thing. You need to stimulate your body in different ways. There's a fine line between changing your exercise too frequently and not changing it frequently enough. If you change it too frequently, you don't give your muscles the chance to adapt and get stronger. If you don't change it frequently enough, you can wear away the joints and you plateau anyway. You go from progress to eventually maintenance, and if you stay on it for too long, regression. So it's a good idea to change your exercise every 2 to 6 months whenever your body plateaus. With my clients, I have a specific rule that is basically the 3 workout rule, and that states this. If for 3 consecutive workouts, you're stagnating or regressing in your weights, in your number of repetitions, in anything, it's time for a new program. And that point may come anywhere from 2 to 6 months down the line. So don't stay on the same exercise routine for years and years. It's good to change it every so often. Myth number 3. Gyms are not for people my age, and I totally get it. If you're over 60, you probably walk into a gym, see a lot of people who are probably under 35, under 40, and they look like they know what they're doing. So you think to yourself, they're going to judge me. I don't feel comfortable. This is not the place for me. But nothing could be further from the truth. First of all, most people in the gym are way too self-conscious about themselves to notice anybody but themselves. So chances are they're not even noticing you. And 2, those who are noticing you are probably very supportive and encouraging. And so gyms are definitely for people your age. Gyms are for people of every age. And the lady you see in this picture, that's one of our clients. Her name is Kathy. And about 3 weeks before this picture was taken, she couldn't get down that low. But that was one of her goals. She wanted to be able to bend down low enough to play with her grandkids. And that's approximately how tall her grandkids are. As a result of doing what you're going to learn later on in this video, you'll be able to do the same thing as well, pain-free. And that's Kathy, pain-free. Myth number 4, walking is enough. Lots of our clients like to walk, and they often brag about how many steps they get throughout their day. Some will say, yeah, I get 6,000 steps a day, or 10,000, or 14,000, and that's great. Walking is very commendable. In fact, I once had a professor in a university who said that if they made a pill that had all the benefits of walking, it would be priceless. Walking is free and available today. So walking is great, don't get me wrong, but walking is not enough. What walking does is maybe it improves your cardiovascular fitness. It does not improve your strength, not even in your legs, and it certainly doesn't improve your flexibility. So in addition to walking, it's very important to do strength training, which is probably why you're watching this video. You're already sold on that concept. So I probably don't need to keep preaching this to you. Now, let's talk about the most important factor for healthy aging. In the 1980s, they did a major study at Tufts University called biomarkers. Biomarkers are the difference between your biological age and your chronological age. And what's the difference? Well, your chronological age is how long you've been alive. It's that number on your driver's license, on your health card, etc. Your biological age is how old you look, feel, and function. Does anyone know somebody who is 60 and looks 50? We probably all know somebody like that. Anybody knows somebody who is 60 but looks 70? We probably know people like that as well. And so what is it that differentiates people based on their age, their factors? And here are the top 10 factors. Number 1 is muscle mass. Number 2 is muscle strength. Number 3 is basal metabolic rate. Number 4 is body fat percentage. Number 5 is aerobic capacity or cardio. Now notice two things. Muscle mass was number 1. Aerobic capacity is number 5. Flexibility didn't make the list. Not to say that cardio and flexibility are not important. They absolutely are, just not as important as muscle mass. And why not? Because your muscle mass is intimately tied to every single body system. For example, your muscles can store up to 350 grams of sugar, of glucose, whereas your liver can only store about 90 grams. So imagine losing your muscle mass. Now you don't have that storage capacity for sugar. And so your risk for type 2 diabetes rises because that sugar does not go out of the blood and into the muscle. It stays in the blood. And so that's why having a low muscle mass can increase your risk of type 2 diabetes. What about your bones? Well, the harder and stronger your muscle pulls on a bone, the stronger the bone gets. If muscles weaken, if muscles lose their mass, they don't pull on bones as hard as they used to, and so your risk for osteopenia or osteoporosis really rises. And what about your immune system? What do you think immune cells are made of? They're made of protein. And where do you think your body gets that protein? It gets it from muscles. So if you lose your muscle mass, you decrease the strength of your immune system as well, and then your risk for things like infections, viruses, and others starts to rise. And these are just 3 examples, but there are other connections between muscles and other body systems, like the endocrine system or your hormones, like the digestive system or the gastrointestinal system, and others. Here's one example of one of our other clients. This is Mandy. She's 63 years old in this picture, and for about 16 years before that picture was taken, she was a type 2 diabetic. It ran in her family. Now, you can see that unlike most type 2 diabetics, Mandy was not overweight. She was actually underweight. And at first, when she was diagnosed with diabetes, she tried a few different things. There was the most common stuff like medications. She was on metformin, and that worked well at first until it didn't work, and they had to raise the dose up and up and up until she reached the maximal dose and could no longer go to higher doses safely. She's tried other medications, other diets, other supplements, and everything worked in the short term, that is 6 months or less, but nothing really worked long term. She wanted a solution that is more permanent. So what did we do with her? We got her to do strength training the proper way, in addition to certain nutritional changes that helped her bring her blood sugar from her A1C from about 7.2 down to less than 6.5. So she essentially went from the diabetic range to the pre-diabetic range. And that was 6 years ago at the time of this recording, and she's still maintaining it. In addition to that, she was able to gain a lot of strength, improve her balance, improve her energy levels, and drop a couple of her medications at her doctor's recommendation. So she was quite happy. Now, let's talk about how to adjust your exercise as you age. Here are 8 factors that you need to consider that will impact your exercise program. By far, the biggest, most important factor is simply your goal. What are you trying to do? Are you trying to lose body fat? Are you trying to gain strength? Are you trying to improve lower back pain? Are you trying to decrease the pain in your knees from arthritis or something else? Your goal will be the biggest determinant of how you exercise. That is factor number 1. Factor number 2 is injuries. What's going on in your body? Do you have any knee pain, any lower back pain, any neck pain, shoulder issues, or something else? That's another factor. Another one is medical conditions. I've obviously written a number of books on 3 different conditions so far, on high blood pressure, on type 2 diabetes, on osteoporosis, and there's a specific way to exercise for different conditions. Yes, exercise in general is good for you, but specific exercise is better. In other words, you can spend 3 hours per week doing a good thing, or you can spend the same 3 hours per week doing the best thing. And in the name of efficiency, if you're going to spend the same 3 hours, why not make sure you're getting the most bang for your buck? Why not make sure you're spending your time as wisely as possible? There needs to be specificity in exercise prescription. What works for one condition may not work for another condition. For example, what works for type 2 diabetes is very different than what works for osteoporosis, and is still different than what works for high blood pressure or osteoarthritis or other conditions. So your conditions definitely make a difference in terms of your exercise program. Another one is your medications. Different medications will affect your body differently. For example, people who have high blood pressure are often put on a class of medications called beta blockers. What beta blockers do is they bring down your blood pressure, but along with it, your heart rate. So if you're doing cardio and you're trying to bring up your heart rate, but the beta blockers bring it down, you may be working super hard and never getting the heart rate that you want. So you have to mind that. Or statins, cholesterol lowering medications. They increase how fast muscle is broken down and to what extent. And so recovery between workouts needs to be longer. Diuretics decrease your water content. So you might need to be taking in more potassium and more water during and around your workouts. So these are just some examples of how medications need how medications will interact with your exercise program to make it safer or more dangerous, and how you need to account for that. Another thing to consider in an exercise program is the type of exercise. Are you doing cardio? Are you doing strength training? Or are you doing stretching? Or all three? In other words, what's your primary goal? Are you exercising for heart health? Are you exercising for increased strength and muscle mass? Are you exercising for less stiffness and better joint mobility? Are you exercising for all three? And what are your specific strengths and weaknesses? Are you naturally strong, but you don't have much endurance? Or do you naturally have a lot of endurance and not a lot of strength? Or do you naturally have a lot of both? Or neither? Another factor to consider in an exercise program is the amount of resistance. How much, I want to say weight, but not really weight. How much resistance are you using? And the reason that I use the word resistance as opposed to weight is because it's more broad. The resistance can include weights, but it can also include resistance bands. It can include your own body weight and others. And so how much resistance you do will affect the other variables in your program. And yet another program is the number of repetitions. Are you doing 5 heavy repetitions? Are you doing 15 to 20 light repetitions? And that will also affect the impact on your body. And the last factor to consider in an exercise program is, well, the exercises themselves. Notice that this actually isn't the first factor. You can do the same exercise, but you can use the same exercise for a lighter weight or a heavier weight. You can change the tempo. You can do it for a slow tempo or a fast tempo. The exercise stays the same, but how you do it is vastly different. And that's why I specifically did not put that variable first. So now let's do a quick review of the factors that are most and least important in an exercise program. The most important by far is the goals, then injuries, medical conditions, medications, the type of exercise that you do, the degree of resistance that you use, the number of repetitions, the exercises that you do. And notice one thing missing in this list. What do you think it is? By the way, if you want to interact with me a little bit, just type it into the comments below. What do you think is missing? It's actually age. Age is not a factor at all. You cannot say that everybody of a certain age should be doing this or should avoid doing this. You cannot say that a 70-year-old with knee pain will have the same program as a 30-year-old without knee pain. Or let's say vice versa. The 70-year-old does not have knee pain and the 30-year-old does. Let's say the 70-year-old is not on beta blockers and the 30-year-old is on beta blockers. Would they have the same program? No. So completely ignore age. Don't program for your age. Program for your ability. Okay? You can't say that 100% of people of a certain age need to do something or avoid doing something. That is simply a myth. That is not individualizing an exercise program. Again, I want to emphasize, program for your ability, not your age. Even within my group of clients who are over 60. Some of my 83, my 84-year-olds, some of them have better capacity and endurance than my 62-year-olds who don't sleep very well. And so I can't look at their ages, I can look at their abilities and what unique strengths and weaknesses do they bring to the table. Now, let's talk about weight loss over 60. Do you have a damaged metabolism? And the way that we figure that out with our clients is we give them a very thorough 321 symptom questionnaire to fill out to understand what's going on with their body. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to ask you guys 10 out of those 321, and all you have to do is you have to add up your scores, okay? And at the end of this, in the comments below, type in what was your score. Question 1, do you have cold hands and feet when other people around you are comfortable? Next, do you have constant fatigue? So you just finished sleeping for 7, 8, 9 hours and you wake up feeling tired. The first thing you do when you get out of bed is you go for a coffee. At about 2 to 4 in the afternoon, you have a major slump, and then you go for another coffee or chocolate bar. And then as the day starts to wind down, you have no energy for anything but maybe watching TV and snacking on something. Next, do you have constipation? Do you have a history of yo-yo dieting? That is going up and down in weight, 15 pounds or more, once in your adult life or more, excluding pregnancies. Next, do you have sugar cravings? So if you're the type of person who likes donuts, chocolates, candy, pastries, that could be you. Next, do you have salt cravings? So if you're the type of person who prefers chips, pretzels, salted nuts over donuts, chocolate, and pastries, that could be you. Next, do you get forgetful? Do you walk into a room and you forget what you wanted to get from there? Do you open up the refrigerator and you forget what you wanted to get from there? Do you forget where you parked your car or where you left your car keys? Of course, if this is you, give yourself a point. Next, do you have problems sleeping? And here's how I define that. Going to bed after 11, waking up before 7, taking longer than 20 minutes to fall asleep, or waking up throughout the night for any reason. And if you said yes, give yourself a point. Next, are you under stress? Okay, if you said yes, give yourself a point. And lastly, do you have a loss of libido? If you said yes, give yourself a point. So let me ask you, in the comments section below, just type in what was your score, and then I'll explain to you what your score means. So what does your score mean? This brings us to what I call the 8 hidden reasons why you can't lose weight. Why are these reasons hidden? Well, by and large, most personal trainers are not trained in things like hormonal balance, digestive health, stress management, and more. Most doctors are trained in a lot of this stuff. However, if it's not life-threatening, it tends to get ignored, which is very, very frustrating for the patient. And so what are these 8 hidden reasons? Well, one is improper liver function. What does the liver do? Well, we think of it as detoxification. You drink alcohol, you damage your liver. So it processes, well, alcohol, but in addition to that, it processes other things. When nutrients come in, you break them down and you put them, you combine them into other things. For example, when you eat protein, you break it down and you make it into other proteins like hemoglobin, like collagen for your skin, hair, and nails, like immunoglobulin for immune system, and so on. And that's what a healthy liver does. A liver that's not working properly will not break down and put together nutrients into other things that are healthful and beneficial for the body. Another one is poor digestive health. Whenever we eat, it's not just calories, carbohydrates, proteins, and fats, it's also vitamins and minerals. In and of themselves, vitamins and minerals don't give us energy. However, they do allow us to extract the energy from the foods that we're eating. And so if we're tired all the time, maybe it's because our digestive system isn't working properly, so we have less energy to move around as much as we can and burn as many calories as we need to burn to maintain a healthy weight. Another hidden reason why some people have a hard time losing body fat is blood sugar imbalances. There are 2 major types of blood sugar imbalance. One in the red is called insulin resistance. And what is that? Well, that's a precursor or something that happens in conjunction with type 2 diabetes. And here's what it looks like. Whenever we eat a meal that is rich in carbohydrates, what happens is blood sugar rises. When blood sugar rises, insulin rises. When insulin rises, blood sugar falls. That's a healthy, normal, desirable blood sugar response. The problem happens when blood sugar rises, insulin rises, but blood sugar doesn't fall or doesn't fall enough. That's insulin resistance. That's almost like this. Imagine you are sitting at home and somebody is ringing your doorbell, but you don't hear that doorbell. Of course, you're not going to let them in your house. Well, that's what's happening with insulin resistance. The insulin is telling the cells, open your door, but the cells don't hear the message of insulin, and so they don't open their door, and sugar stays in the blood and doesn't go inside the cells, whatever cells they may be, whether it's muscle cells, liver cells, fat cells, or others. That's one possible problem with blood sugar. Another possible problem with blood sugar is something called reactive hypoglycemia, or low blood sugar. What is that? Well, you're eating a meal that's rich in carbohydrates, blood sugar rises, insulin rises, blood sugar falls too much, too fast. This might be you if you get hungry an hour or two after eating. This might be you if you get irritable if meals are skipped or delayed. And this might be you if you get hangry, hungry and angry at the same time. And both of these could undermine your efforts at fat loss, even if you're doing everything else right. Another one is adrenal fatigue. Now, fundamentally, this is an imbalance in two different hormones called cortisol, which is the stress hormone, and DHEA, which is what they call the youth hormone. Now, yes, there is some debate whether adrenal fatigue even exists or whether it's real, but there are some ways to figure this out without directly measuring cortisol, and there is some evidence for it. And an imbalance in one hormone will often cause imbalances in other hormones. For instance, high cortisol can cause low DHEA, which can cause low testosterone, and estrogen, and progesterone, and others. Another one is toxicity. And this can be measured with a couple of simple blood tests. One is called GGT, or gamma glutamyl transferase. Another one is uric acid. And a third one is bilirubin. Very standard, very basic tests, but they tell you, do you have so much toxicity that it could undermine your efforts at losing body fat despite doing everything right? Another one is hormonal imbalances. As a lot of women who've gone through menopause can tell you that seemingly without any changes in exercise or nutrition, body fat is gained and frequently around the middle. As a lot of men will tell you, and maybe you know yourself, is that as men age, maybe when they were younger, they just gained fat in their belly. As they get older, they start to gain fat in their belly, in their chest, as well as in their buns and thighs. So it seems like aging and excess body fat is masculinizing to women and feminizing to men. And again, that can also undermine your efforts at losing body fat. Another one is imbalanced brain chemistry. And I apologize for the color here. But your brain has certain chemicals in it, collectively known as neurotransmitters. Individually, they have names like serotonin, dopamine, acetylcholine, and so on. What they do as a group is they regulate things like mood, energy, appetite, and so on. And when they're working properly, you feel good. You have good focus, good sleep, good energy levels, and as it pertains to body fat, well, no cravings. But when they're out of balance relative to each other or just low altogether, you have all the opposite stuff: poor sleep, poor focus, and cravings. And it's very, very hard to battle poor brain chemistry with just willpower. So you might as well improve your brain chemistry so that you don't have to use willpower to do all this. And lastly, a slow thyroid. The thyroid is a butterfly-shaped gland that sits in front of the windpipe, and it's kind of like the gas pedal on your metabolism. When it's working properly, you feel good. Good energy, good hair quality, good skin quality, and so on. When it's not working properly, you get cold hands and feet when other people around you are comfortable. That's why that question is in there. You get constipation, you get thinning of the outer third of your eyebrow, and you have a hard time losing body fat because you have a slow metabolism. So these are the 8 hidden reasons why you can't lose weight. Now, What do you do with this information? Well, step one is you figure out if you have fat loss resistance or not. And the way we figure out with our clients, as I mentioned earlier, is we have a very thorough 321 symptom questionnaire to fill out to understand what's going on. The second step is you fix it. And the truth is, easier said than done, because there's no cookie cutter recipe book way of fixing any one of these imbalances. Two people may have the same issue, but the cause is different. And I'll give you an example of low iron because it's so common. Let's say one person has low iron. So there could be a number of different reasons for that. Maybe it's an intake issue. Maybe they're just not eating enough iron-containing foods. And so this might be a suspicion if somebody's vegan or vegetarian and not eating enough plant-based sources of iron. But let's say somebody is not a vegan or vegetarian, they're getting enough iron, and yet they still have low blood levels of iron. Why might that be? Maybe the issue is absorption. Maybe they are eating iron, but not extracting it from the food that they're eating. So in which case, the approach would be different. Or let's say a third possibility. They're eating enough iron-containing foods, their digestion is good, and yet they still have low levels of iron. Why might that be? Well, maybe they're losing too much. And that might be the case for, I guess, premenopausal women who are menstruating heavily, or for people who have gastrointestinal bleeding and may or may not know it. These are just three reasons why somebody may have low iron. But what are the solutions? For person number one, who has an intake issue, maybe the solution is just eat more iron-containing foods or take an iron supplement. For person number two, for whom the issue is digestion, maybe the solution is to improve their digestion, to work with a gastroenterologist or to somehow, using some other method, to improve their digestion, and this way they're not losing too much iron. For person number three, who is losing it because of bleeding, maybe the solution is to stop the bleeding. After all, if we have a bucket that water is going into it, but there's a hole in the bucket, do we pour more water into the bucket or do we plug the hole? Well, of course, we plug the hole. So maybe for person number three, it's more about stopping the gastrointestinal bleeding or whatever other source of bleeding there is. So we can see three people have low iron, but the solutions we use are different. For one person, it's dietary. For one person, it's gastrointestinal. For a third person, it's hormonal. Okay. And these are just three reasons. There are other reasons for low iron. And that's why you can't say, if you have, for example, a slow thyroid, then exercise this way, take these supplements, eat these foods. You can't do that, because you have to understand each person's reason for a slow thyroid or adrenal fatigue or blood sugar imbalances, etc. And each program has to be made with a person's unique physiology in mind. Here is another case study of one of our clients. This here is Lynn. In this picture, she is 69 years old, and 9 months from when that picture was taken, she was going to turn 70, and she had 3 goals when she started working with us. Goal number 1, for her 70th birthday, she wanted to go from Ontario to Vancouver to do a very rugged 70-kilometer hike with a 35-pound backpack. That was goal number 1. Goal number 2, weight loss. She's been battling with the same 20 pounds the past 50 years. Since she was about 20 years old to, well, until that picture was taken, she would go down 20 pounds, up 20 pounds, down 20 pounds, up 20 pounds, and could never really maintain it beyond about 6 months. So she wasn't happy with that, and she wanted to do better. And goal number 3 was confidence. She was already going to the gym, but she wasn't really sure what she was doing. She would walk in, look around, see which piece of equipment was free, get on that, and then do it. Now, she wasn't really sure about the order, the number of repetitions, the amount of weight that she should be using, etc. Well, fast forward 9 months, she did turn 70. She did end up going on that 70-kilometer hike with a 35-pound backpack, keeping up with women in their 20s and 30s. She was able to drop the 20 pounds and maintain it so far 6 years beyond her training with us. And number 3, nowadays, she goes to the gym. She knows exactly what to do. She knows which exercises, in what order, how much weight, and how many repetitions. She's very happy with her progress. So that's Lynn's case study. And if you want similar progress, if you want one-on-one help with your own fitness, just fill out the application form on our homepage. That is www.fitnesssolutions.ca. It doesn't matter where you are, whether you are in the United States, in Canada, in the UK, in Australia, or anywhere else. We have plenty of clients who are virtual. I hope you enjoyed this presentation. If you did, please click like and subscribe, and you'll get more like this.